session, and so it's Professor A.Cimino and Antonio. Oh, it was underlined, Adolfo, I apologize. And he's going to talk about advanced strategies for the reliable knowledge and mitigation of contamination risk in coastal Mediterranean aquifers. So we go back to pollution and our environment.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present some of our recent researches carried out in Department of Physics and Related Technologies. And we will discuss about a branch of the environmental risk, especially the risk of pollution relevant to aquifers, to groundwaters. This problem is very high, especially in coastal sectors of the Mediterranean Sea. I see that the immune institutions are relevant to 14 countries. Many of these are very close or have many close territories close to the sea. The problem is to perform a mapping of the pollution risk by means of advanced technologies. This problem has become heavy in Mediterranean coastal megalopolis in more or less advanced phases of maturity. We see many towns very close to the sea, and this project is to perform a mitigation of the hydrogeological risk in very crowded sector of Sicily, located along the coast. Groundwater quality and availability are strongly influenced by climatic changes, aquifer overdrafts, and heavy anthropization of the territory. Sicily region includes karst and alluvial aquifers, described by numerous specific papers. And in these territories, many standard methods have been applied to try to perform a mapping of vulnerability of pollution vulnerability in this environment. We see in this slide some localities of Sicily in which many maps of vulnerability have been performed. Among these, we see the Acquedolci test site. This is the test site zone because we dispose many data have been the availability of many data in Acquedolci area. This area is an ideal test for a pollution risk estimation. This area is characterized by quaternary complexes with sandy, gravelly, arenaceous formations. And in blue, you see limestones and dolomitic reliefs that supply littoral aquifers. In this zone, we carry out vulnerability mapping. This synoptic scheme show the phases to arrive to the pollution risk assessment, starting from bibliographic and field data through the application of GIS softwares, performing territorial danger, vulnerability and quality of groundwaters, and arriving finally to the risk concept. The problem is that the vulnerability concept is not a very precise concept. It is subject to uncertainties and difficulties to assess. Syntax method is one of the more applied protocols to perform vulnerability in Italy. This method consists to consider scores and weights relevant to hydrogeological elements. These elements affect closely the capability of an aquifer to be contaminated. This is the first step. We try to perform vulnerability maps by syntax methodology, arriving to the consideration of 7 parameters: depth to water, infiltration, attenuation of the unsaturated zone, typology of the overburden, aquifer features, hydraulic conductivity, slope of topography. These layers are considered arriving to a vulnerability map, intrinsic vulnerability map that is relevant to the passive behavior of the territory. This map has been realized for the Acquedolci territory. This is a coastal territory affected by a phenomena of sea encroachment that pollute heavily the aquifers. It is very important to establish the rates of vulnerability, and in this zone we recognize different vulnerability grade, generally medium to elevated, especially in the coastal alluvial sediments. In this area, the characteristics, the features of parameters, especially hydrogeological parameters as hydraulic conductivity, are of non-linearity, and this complicates very much the question and makes the problem very difficult to effort to solve because of the non-homogeneity of the aquifer, especially in the alluvial fan near the mouths of the torrents. In this case, at left, at right of this zone. The second step of the project is to perform not the intrinsic vulnerability, but the specific vulnerability against the sea encroachment. In this way, we applied the Galdit method that considers parameters closely related to sea encroachment phenomena. This method includes 6 main parameters. That is, the most important are the impact of X status of seawater intrusion area and the distance from the shore, considering the different wells, bore wells, the wells in the area. This is the result of this part of the research, the Galdit specific vulnerability map of groundwater in the Acquedolci coastal area. Also, in this case, we have to consider scores and weights to perform the final vulnerability index, that is the capability of the territory to be polluted by contaminants arriving from the surface or from the sea, as in this case. The third step is to perform pollution vulnerability mapping by physiologic application. The key sentence is implementation of consequential vulnerability mapping through physiologic software in a MATLAB environment. This is the result of the application of the physiologic. This is the syntax map of Acquedolci map, the Acquedolci area. We have performed a reduction of parameters, taking off those parameters affected by redundancy, and so we arrived to a map, syntax map, with only 4 parameters, reducing the number of parameters and successively applying fuzzy logic. This is the syntax map with only 4 parameters, and the previous map. This is the fuzzy logic vulnerability map performed with only 4 parameters. In conclusion, we have reviewed the most recent applications of standards like the quoted syntax and Galdit, performing pollution vulnerability mapping in the Acquedolci plain. It is a very interesting test site aquifer, giving a better comprehension of the hydrogeological scenery of the complex aquifers occurring in the Acquedolci area. Fuzzy logic had a further mathematical aid to vulnerability assessment, minimizing uncertainties and probabilistic effects due to stochastic hydrological parameters like depth water, an example, that is a parameter changing in the time and diciamo, depending on the climatic precipitations, in example. The above consideration outcomes can be replicated in how many possible sectors. We see giving a universal interest to the exposure procedure to be extended to similar coastal Mediterranean areas of the immune environment. This is a director of selected references. Thank you for your attention. Okay.
Thank you, Professor A.Cimino, for this very interesting approach, which must be extended to other coastal environments in Sicily. Invitation. This is invitation, of course. Any question or comments for Professor A.Cimino? No, and so I think I can conclude this first part of the afternoon, this first session. Thank you very much to everybody. Thank you to Professor Lamantia. For the second time, I had the chance of widen my knowledge in fields which are a bit far from my own. I'm a pathologist, and so thank you very much. I only ask future speaker to upload their presentation, and I call Professoressa Lococo, who will run next session. Thank you very much.
Next chairman.